everybody. Welcome back to another episode of SOC Talk, where really our goal is to try to give you insight into the Security Operations Center, really give you a feel for what it looks like, some of the tools and expectations, and really just kind of bringing the SOC to you and making it real for you. So I have a guest today who you guys have seen before, actually. His name is Dylan Munson. Dylan, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well also. Listen, I'm happy that we're able to spend some time together again. It's been a little while since we've had a chance to really sit down and talk. And, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on was because I knew that you would be able to bring some insight and really kind of look at what your expectations were going into a SOC versus what you actually saw there, really kind of looking to see how does it actually compare to what you thought you were going to see when you got there. So really, that's kind of what I would like to talk about today. Maybe we can start with telling us first off, how's it been since you landed in the SOC?
It's been great. It's been very busy. Been learning a lot, pretty much every day, figuring out something new. And there's just so many different avenues to follow in this field that
Right.
I kind of learned something different all the time. From like vulnerability management, I had like no experience with that before, and jumping into that was like a extremely overwhelming at first, because it's like you're tracking, you see thousands of vulnerabilities, and you start freaking out. And you're like, who do I talk to about this? And then a month later, you figure out who to reach out to, and who you need to ask to update their system, and who you need to yell at to
Right.
to push an update. And I mean, that's kind of been a big part of it, just learning a lot about that, and learning a lot about like PowerShell scripting and DLP, and learning more about Linux and or like Linux servers, Red Hat, stuff like that. And
So, okay, so just to make things clear, so you didn't know everything before you landed in the SOC? I think that's a big misconception in itself, right? Is that you have to know everything. And it's really not the case, right?
hmm you basically just have to know how to do the basics, and kind of have like the analytical mind to be able to kind of see that something's wrong and be able to fix it when you first go in. But everything else just comes with time, because it is overwhelming to try to figure out all that
Right.
before you even start. Because like, where do you start without the experience?
Well, I assume that when you got there, an expectation is that you were expected to be an expert on day one. I assume that wasn't the case either. Is
No, no,
that?
not at all. They're going to start. They just basically started me out with like, oh, we're going to give you these easy tasks, like you're going to handle granting permissions in Active Directory, and maybe terminating employees and removing their access. So just it started out with that, and then here's the SIEM tool. Just don't worry about like closing incidents or creating a bunch of tickets, and just get used to it. Get comfortable with this new tool, because I had switched over to a completely different set of tools as well. So
Okay.
that's part of it.
So many questions. So many questions. Okay. So are you in a self-contained SOC?
Yes.
Okay. So you guys are only monitoring the traffic and so forth, the security events for your company. You're not like in an MSSP, right?
Correct.
Got it.
It's a little slightly more complicated than that, because we provide like infrastructure and services and software to rural hospitals.
Okay.
So we kind of give them the infrastructure, and we monitor the data center.
Okay.
But we're not necessarily an MSSP. We don't do like full security for them. We just monitor
Gotcha.
like vulnerabilities for those systems.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Well, so again, just like I tell everybody all the time, there's so many different security operations center scenarios and setups and so forth. It sounds like this setup and what you guys do every day. Is that a little different than maybe what you expected when you got there?
Yes. I thought it would just be, oh, this one company. I'm able to see everything and kind of understand what the network infrastructure looks like and what I'm protecting. And I thought there was just going to be a bunch of endpoints that I'm keeping track of, and like maybe monitoring phishing. But it was just
Right.
it was so much more than that. There's thousands of servers. There's thousands of endpoints and email and all
Right.
different things.
Now, I know that you knew a little bit of vulnerability assessments, just from what you know from your past, but sounds like you kind of had to expand on that knowledge a little bit. But how are you enjoying doing vulnerability analysis? Is it interesting? Is it challenging? Is it fun?
It's interesting. I mean, it's all the above.
Yeah.
It's challenging as well, because sometimes you have this list of vulnerabilities that you want to chip away at,
Mhm.
and you kind of have to go through the right avenues to get those things updated. And sometimes, like an operating system's end of life, and you literally can't do anything about it until they decide to upgrade the operating system. So
Yeah.
you have to it's all just basically about keeping track of everything and making sure that's communicated to the people that need to have that information, and that like a plan's in place, like
Yeah,
in a timeline,
it's not as easy as just saying, here's the vulnerabilities,
and then
patch
fixing.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not that easy, right? Because you have legacy issues and you have reasons why you can't update a particular application or patch a vulnerability. So it's a little more complex than that. But again, even just knowing the basics of it though has helped you out a lot, it seems like, which is a good thing.
And I would love to be able to like log onto those systems and patch them myself, but it's like we have separate roles, separate responsibilities, and I don't have access to that. So I have to, it's communicating with other people. That's part of the challenge too.
Very cool. Very interesting. Well, you've already answered my next question, which was, what's been different? I mean, it sounds like there's quite a few different things that have been a little different than you expected. I guess maybe what's the biggest difference? Like, what's the biggest thing that you really, do you have one that you, off the top of your head, you're like, man, I really thought this was going to be completely different. Like, what do you think would be the biggest item?
I think I thought I would just be kind of monitoring SIEM tools and EDR all day.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just maybe 10, 15% of the job. I mean, it depends on the day, but
right.
So many other things to keep track of. And it's like, especially when there's so many more tasks, depending on what the SOC and the responsibilities of that SOC. So a lot of requests for Active Directory permissions, a lot of terminations of employees, a lot of just random requests from people.
Yeah.
Phishing incidents. It goes on.
Well, it's a hospital, right? Or hospitals are off limits to attackers, right? They don't do any bad stuff to hospitals, right?
No, they told me, but no. Yeah.
That's what they told you. That's who told you.
People.
People.
That's what I told myself. Yeah.
It's funny. I think for a long time there was an expectation that hospitals were kind of off limits. Has that changed? Is that different now? Do you think?
They are not off limits at all. I mean, if the bad actors, they're called bad actors for a reason, and they're going to do whatever they can, get money and gain access. It doesn't matter where. Yeah,
I've heard from a few different people who they said for a long time hospitals were kind of like we don't want to be that bad. Like we don't want to be responsible for something bad. And then that attack happened in Europe where that patient passed away in a hospital because they were under an attack and they couldn't use their equipment properly, so they weren't able to save the patient. And I think since then, it seems like they're like, well, I guess that's we didn't want to be the first one, but that's out of the way now, so have at it. So that's kind of scary when you stop to think about it, but crazy. Now that you've been in the SOC for about a year, what's the best piece of advice you would give somebody who's just entering the security operations center field?
I think stay curious, and I mean that in like multiple ways. Like asking questions to your peers is obviously a really good way to gain knowledge, and asking questions about your own knowledge, and like not just kind of expecting that you're going to know everything, and just kind of always looking for new things to learn and keep yourself updated. And also, like, I know it was just something that it wasn't a mistake, but it's something I learned from thinking that, I'm coming into this company. They must have everything set up perfectly, and I'm not gonna question any of the setup. And as time went on, I was like, do we have like a password manager, or like, do we have like the proper conditional access policies set up? And a lot of those things sometimes, they were like, maybe we should think about that. And it takes maybe somebody bringing it up for it to like make a change and actually have something like a password manager company-wide implemented.
So, I was going to say, be able to implement something that actually exacts change. It's probably, I think a lot of people in the SOC can kind of get into a groove, where they're doing the same thing day in, day out. And sometimes it's hard for them to kind of think outside the box and go, what are we missing? Like, what don't we have here? Right. So it sounds like, you've been able to do a little bit of that, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's been a fun part of it. Just a lot of times when I do have downtime, I'll kind of poke around in the tools to see like what the policies are and how they're set up, and maybe I catch something that's missing, or maybe there's a switch that's not turned on that maybe should be turned on. Even if it's intentional, maybe asking the question to your manager, is this supposed to be turned off? But just being proactive and making sure that your company is protected. because I mean, I trust everybody I work with, but with the amount of settings that are in these tools and policies, there's bound to be something that's looked over. So
I was going to say accidents happen. Unfortunately, we are human, and everybody says that we're the weak point. It's the truth, right? Somebody goes in to do something, and they have to make a change in order to carry out something, and they forget to put it back. That happens with IT updates and things all the time. They go in and have to disable the EDR tool because the only way that they're going to be able to install this new application is by disabling that, so it doesn't stop it. So they disable it, do the installation, and they forget to re-enable it, right? Something like that. So that stuff does happen, and I mean, unfortunately, it's a I hate to say it's a common error, but it is something that can happen. So yeah, definitely makes things a little interesting. But I love the curiosity. I love how you're kind of always digging and looking for something else. Would you say that the expectations of like certifications and trainings and things like that, would you say that you had one expectation and you're seeing different now that you're in the SOC?
as far as like with the certifications.
Yeah, like requirements for certifications, or even different, like maybe you thought certain certifications would be more valuable, but they're just not. Things like that. Anything like that at all? Just out of curiosity.
Yes, I think once you're in a position, the certifications, like your company that you work for, generally doesn't care what your certifications are. They care how you're making an impact on the company. Because I've wanted to like study for different certifications, and I've tried to make time for it, but the company doesn't have the expectations of, oh, you need to have this to be able to do XYZ. It's
Gotcha.
They see me work every day, and they see what I'm able to do and what I'm able to accomplish, and they make their decisions based on that, based on the experience and what they see.
Gotcha. Are you actually currently studying for anything at all, like
yeah,
certification or anything?
I started studying for the CISSP. I know I need 5 years of experience, but you can take the exam to get like the associate's certification, and then once you hit 5 years, you can get officially certified. So I've been like slowly studying for that, but I'm a little scared for that test because I've heard that it's
very management focused,
dynamic, and it'll change the questions based on what answers or like what fields you're doing well at, and it'll switch it up. It's scary.
Yeah, and it's definitely more of a management level. Like you got to think like a manager and not as much like an analyst.
Well, I'm thinking if I take that, then all the other certifications will be easier. So I'll do the hard one and then get some easy ones after that immediately.
We may need to do a follow-up after you take your CISSP and see what your thoughts are on that, and see if your expectations have changed.
Or say I'm done. That's the last certification we're doing.
A lot of times the CISSP is thrown around a lot out there, but it's really kind of it's like the CISM. It's a management level training, right? And it's definitely something that you expect your higher tier analysts, your leads, your SOC managers, CISOs, things like that. You expect them to have, but as a tier 1, maybe not so much. Tier 2, even maybe not so much as well too. So interesting that you kind of are going. Do you have just out of curiosity? Do you have a reason why you kind of are going CISSP? Did something prompt that?
I had a friend that suggested I kind of go for this because you can get the associates, and it's basically you're studying beyond your knowledge.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that would help kind of boost my knowledge further than just what like a CISA would. And I can learn a little bit more than what's contained in that exam. So that was my thinking.
I've seen both sides where, some people are like, oh, you shouldn't even mess with CISSP until you've been around for a while, or you're looking to get into management. But I can also see, looking at it earlier, just to kind of understand too, what they're expecting out of managers who are running security operations centers, right? So that you understand how to communicate better with your management, and you know what they're looking for and what they're thinking about and how they're thinking about it. So I do think there's actually still value in doing the CISSP early. So I don't think that that's a bad idea at all. It'll be interesting to see what you decide to study next. Will you do, cloud security practitioner, or will you do, certified cloud security engineer or whatever? There's so many different, ways you can go. Like you said, CISA, or will you do pen test plus or something like that? I mean, there's so many different directions that an analyst can go once they kind of start to get a feel for what it is that they really enjoy doing and want to do ultimately for the bulk of their career. Because when you first start, like you're doing a little bit of everything, right? And I know with your management, and you know what they're looking for and what they're thinking about and how they're thinking about it. So I do think there's actually still value in doing the CISSP early. So I don't think that that's a bad idea at all. It'll be interesting to see what you decide to study next. Will you do, cloud security practitioner, or will you do, certified cloud security engineer or whatever? There's so many different, ways you can go. Like you said, CISA, or will you do pen test plus or something like that? I mean, there's so many different directions that an analyst can go once they kind of start to get a feel for what it is that they really enjoy doing and want to do ultimately for the bulk of their career. Because when you first start, like you're doing a little bit of everything, right? And I know I try to set the expectation with people that I talk to that when you first start, like there's a possibility you could be doing many different things depending on what kind of stock you're in. And it seems like you're kind of in that scenario where you've got a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You're doing a little bit of IT stuff, a little bit of vulnerability management, a little bit of security operations center, like you're investigations. You're doing a little bit of everything, which is pretty cool. I think it actually helps you build your skill set across the board and really kind of find maybe your niche, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Definitely agree.
well, awesome. Well, listen, we could probably sit and talk all day, but I don't want to drag on too long, and I definitely want to respect your time. So, Dylan, man, thanks a lot, and definitely appreciate it. And keep us surprised as to how things are going, and absolutely always let me know if there's anything I can do to help you out. And if there's anything you want to talk about that you want to bring to SOC Talk, man, I'm open to it. So shoot me a message, and we'll do another episode. All right.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.
You too.